With Christmas around the corner, there's a question some atheist parents might be wondering. Is it okay to tell your kids about Santa Claus? It might seem harmless. I'll be straight up with you and say I do it with my kids. But the people who oppose the idea have some reasons that aren't entirely crazy. They're not trying to be killjoys either, or stop anyone else from celebrating. They just choose not to do it. And they don't think you should either. And since there's nothing YouTube loves more than unnecessary controversies, I thought we'd talk about it. If nothing else, just consider this video a thought experiment involving another side to Christmas that a lot of people never think about. Now, since most of you, like me, probably think Santa is no big deal and enjoy this time of year, let's start by talking about why that is. I think the most obvious reason to tell your kids about Santa Claus is that it's just fun. It's fun to see kids get excited about Santa. Fun to see them writing letters telling him what they want. Fun to take pictures with one at the mall. At least back in the days when we used to have malls and were able to go anywhere. It's fun to see the looks on their faces when they think Santa left them presents. Fun to sing songs about him. I remember getting excited about that. And I get excited about nothing anymore. This is like one nice thing we can have. So just let me have it and shut your face when I'm binge watching Lifetime movies, and let me enjoy not having to go to work or school. Plus, they're only kids for a short time, and they'll probably figure out the truth before you know it, so come on. Just let them enjoy this for a few years before they grow up and become jaded and cynical and want nothing to do with their parents. Besides that, it's also just a cultural thing so many people have in common, even if they don't necessarily celebrate it. You don't have to be a Christian to enjoy the Christmas spirit. It doesn't matter what your political beliefs are, or generally where you live. Even if you're Jewish or Muslim or atheist, it's a story you're at least aware of, even if it means very little to you personally. And it seems like there are so few things these days that we all share and understand and don't turn into some partisan issue. I know there's the fictional war on Christmas, and I know some people insist Santa is white, even though that makes no sense because he was never real. And I know that forcing 8 reindeer to fly you around the world while running a workshop full of elves who can't get any rest and probably can't form a union is just awful. And I know the whole traditional gender roles thing with Mrs. Claus gets really old really fast. And I'm not even getting into the Dutch tradition of Black Pete. Look it up. My point is, Santa isn't political. So if you don't have a good reason to not tell your kids about him, why not? Here's another reason I kind of like it. And this is not a new thought for an atheist channel, but Santa is kind of like training wheels for God. We tell kids that someone is watching over them, knows if they've been good or bad, will reward them if they're good and punish them if they're not. There are places we can go to be in his presence. We sing songs about him. Santa is really just a low-stakes God with better music. Replace hell with a lump of coal and you get the idea. But here's the big difference, and it's why I think Santa is acceptable, even if I think certain beliefs about God cross a line. We all expect kids to grow out of Santa. There's something wrong with you if you're an adult who still thinks someone's coming down your chimney one night to drop off some gifts. At some point, your kids go from believing in him to questioning the logic of him to knowing for a fact that he's not real. It happens pretty quickly. Sometimes their friends straight up tell them it's a lie, those little punks. Or your kids figure out that all these malls can't have the same Santa, and he can't really visit every house in one night. And what about homes that don't have a chimney, or people who don't have homes at all? And why are the cookies they leave out for Santa the same ones that Mommy and Daddy like so much? And seriously, how old is this guy now? But back to the training wheels analogy. If they can figure out the game when they're that young, odds are they have the critical thinking abilities to figure out religion when they're older. As the author Dale McGowan once wrote, participating in the Santa myth gives the children of atheist parents, quote, a priceless opportunity to see a mass cultural illusion, first from the inside, then from the outside, unquote. What a learning experience. When else is that going to happen in a seemingly harmless way? If nothing else, they feel really good about figuring out the truth. And they like playing along with the parents if there's a younger sibling who hasn't caught on yet. There is power in knowing something that a lot of other people haven't figured out yet. And unlike religion, which can leave you traumatized or hurt or penniless, the Santa myth won't destroy a child. Okay, I think all of that is fairly obvious. So why on earth would you not want to do that? Why would some cruel, godless parents take that away from their innocent kids? The simplest reason is actually an honorable one. You don't want to lie to them. You want to have a relationship with your kids based on trust and honesty. And to these people, there is nothing harmless or silly or fun about stringing them along for years with something you know is a lie. If your kids realize at a young age that they can't trust you, that resentment may, in fact, linger. Parents who oppose the Santa myth basically say you should be honest with your kids. Just tell them about the story so they're culturally literate and not out of the loop. Tell them their friends may believe it, and a lot of people celebrate it, and they shouldn't ruin it for others, but in this family, we don't lie to each other. The corollary to that is that if your kids are old enough to have that conversation, your kids are probably old enough to ask some of those critical questions I mentioned earlier about whether Santa could really travel all over the world in a night, and why his handwriting looks very familiar. And not being honest with them is basically punishing them for asking really good questions. They should be rewarded for that, with confirmation that they're on the right track, not told to just have faith in a lie. You're a parent, not a pastor. Your job is to tell kids the truth. If nothing else, you can use the holiday to perform some experiments. Get your kids thinking about how they could prove whether or not Santa exists. You could set up a camera by the fireplace. The kids could take shifts watching the living room overnight. I mean, there are ways to figure out if Santa is really doing what people say he'll do. Your children figuring that stuff out is really an exercise in critical thinking and creativity. Here's another reason I find interesting and compelling, and which I totally ignore because, again, Santa is fun and I already lie to my kids all the time and don't feel bad about it in the least. By telling your kids Santa will reward them if they're good, you're being a bad parent. It's your job to teach your kids right from wrong. Don't outsource that to the North Pole. Part of teaching your kids to do the right thing is teaching them that they might not always be rewarded for it. That's what morality is, doing the right thing for the right reason, even if no one is watching, not because they want a new PS5. A lot of people say to atheists that you need God to be good. How will your kids learn morality without religion? And a common response to that is if your kid is doing the right thing because he fears God or thinks God will reward him in the afterlife, then your kid didn't really learn to be good at all, did he? Kindness and decency shouldn't be transactional. You shouldn't be nice because you expect something in return. Well, the same principle applies to Santa. It's not just the kids either. As a parent, you can always get your kid a present. You don't need to wait until the end of December. But it shouldn't be a reward for your child being good for a couple of weeks in the winter, or because it's a specific holiday. Giving them something in exchange for them doing what they're supposed to do anyway sends a mixed message at best. Here's another reason to be an anti-Santite. Atheists are not generally fans of tradition. What is religion but a set of traditions and stories that get passed down generation after generation, even when we know some of them are harmful and wrong? There's nothing wrong with playful traditions like getting together with your college buddies at your local bar once a year, or playing football in the backyard with the family on Thanksgiving. But you shouldn't do something just because everyone else is doing it. And a lot of Christmas is performative that way. You do things because you've always done those things, and because everyone else is doing those things. Break the mold, people. Create your own traditions. Then there's the classic argument against Christmas, which is that it teaches kids about greed. They want stuff. They always want more stuff. They probably don't need a lot of that stuff. Why are we giving it to them? We shouldn't reward their materialism. If anything, we should use the opportunity to teach them how to be generous to people who are less fortunate. Why not use Christmas to give to others instead of getting something for ourselves? By the way, I'm saying all this as an atheist, but many Christians too oppose the commercialization of Christmas and all the Santa stuff, in large part because they believe it takes attention away from the real reason for the season. More focus on Santa means less focus on the birth of Christ, so even they oppose it at some level. Look, ultimately, you are not a good or bad atheist for celebrating Christmas the way so many other people do. This year especially, we could all use some joy, even if a lot of it is artificial, and even if you can't do it with all of your extended family. But I do think the question of how you handle Christmas says a lot about what you think about religion as a whole. Is it a nice, harmless set of traditions that you participate in because of our shared culture, even though you know it's not true? Or is it a smaller scale delusion that you prefer not to perpetuate, despite it being very easy to rationalize? This is not the war on Christmas so many conservatives pretend is happening, but maybe it should be. Because there are legitimate reasons people might not want to play along with the Santa story. I would love to hear your thoughts, especially if you're an atheist who doesn't do Christmas. How do your kids feel? How do you justify it? Give us some tips. And if I don't post before then, congratulations to all of you on a new year. You made it through 2020. It's almost done.